Solo Leveling is not only one of the most anticipated anime adaptations in 2024, but one of the highest rated anime of the season. I'm going to give a brief overview of the anime for those that aren't familiar with it, so if you wish to watch it, don't worry, you'll be warned before I talk about spoilers. As for the webtoon, I'm only really going to bring it up whenever they've actively cut something out of the anime that I want to mention. None of it's really going to be story relevant, so don't worry about it. Solo Leveling began as a web novel in 2016, written by, and I apologize, I don't speak Korean, so if I butcher the pronunciations, my bad. Written by Chugong and drawn by Dubu. Dubu went on to spearhead the webtoon for Solo Leveling in 2018, which itself concluded in late 2021. Sadly, Dubu has passed away. I feel this is important to mention because I want to be specific and say that any criticisms that I have towards this work do not lessen the tragedy of his passing. I am also not sure what parts were created exactly by Chugong, H-Gun, or by Dubu, so I will refrain from calling out any of them specifically for a positive or negative unless I come across a reputable source. Also, I don't know if it's a weird translation or not, because I don't read or speak Korean, but it is really funny to me that the author is listed as H-Gun. Wasn't expecting to find a fellow Gooner in the anime world, but here we are. Now, Solo Leveling, very briefly, is set in the real world, except about 10 years ago, strange gates began opening up where monsters would pour out of. Conventional weapons are found to be useless, but suddenly, specific humans would awaken an inner magical power that allowed them to combat the monsters. They would later be called hunters. Their job was to venture into any new gate that formed in order to defeat the boss of the dungeon, to get standard RPG loot, magic crystals, weapons, items, etc. If the gates were left untouched, there would be a dungeon break and monsters would be able to cross into the human world. Unlike RPGs though, once you've awakened to your hunter powers, you cannot get stronger. What abilities you have is all you're going to have. This is pretty problematic for our main character, Sung Jin Woo, who has been given the title of the weakest hunter in the world at a paltry E rank. The series follows his experiences as he unlocks the ability to level up as what's known as a player. It's a title granted to Jinwoo by the mysterious system that has given him access to quests, a stat sheet, an online store, among many other things. At this point, I can't really go into the story itself without going into spoilers, so I'm gonna go over the other aspects of the show and webtoon. If nothing else, the art is very nice to look at. It's got a really good sense of color, dynamic, and visual focus that can sometimes be lost in comics. There's rarely a scene that I'm watching that makes me wonder what emotion is meant to be conveyed, be it anger, sadness, joy. Everything's very clearly defined. What I personally don't like, though, is how anyone that's considered to be a certified quote-unquote badass generally is going to have a very similar face, floaty hair effect, serious glowing eyes. So it becomes pretty hard to tell when there's a room full of powerful people what actually sets them apart from each other than just being powerful. Another thing that I feel they kind of dropped the ball on, which isn't unique to Solo Leveling, is the monster designs. Because with Solo Leveling specifically, outside of some very specific instances, it has pretty generic monster designs. I'm not saying it's bad to have ogres, goblins, serpents, and more in your fantasy world, but they just don't have anything unique to set them aside from monsters in a cash grab MMO turned out in a year that only lasts 6 months. Hell, the one shot everyone who has even remotely heard about this show knows about, the smiling statue, it's just the same expression as the Titan who ate Aaron's mom in the first episode of Attack on Titan made. It's a different art style, obviously, but it's just the same face. I'm all for referencing what you like and all. I like Fear and Hunger Termina, but come on, man. As for the transition from webtoon to anime, I know it's not the artist's fault, and the working conditions of animators are on par with being a Marvel CG artist, but man, a lot of these scenes are clearly just lazy attempts to connect panels from the webcomic that don't have an obvious bridging frame. It would take a lot more time, and I know they're rarely given that, evidenced by the 7.5 episode, but in some episodes it can be pretty glaring. Overall, the art is better in the webtoon. Big shocker, I know. But there were several large-scale panels in the webtoon that, while very pretty to look at, was kind of hard to figure out what I was actually supposed to be seeing. Several things I had to piece together from the before and after panels. The equipment designs are also extremely generic. Nothing really shows us how it's unique to the world as opposed to any other video game, isekai, low-effort fantasy show. Our main character uses a dagger because I guess none of the authors from 2012 to 2015 noticed that every single one of them went, I'll make my main character different by having them use a dagger. It doesn't help the matter that when his dagger doesn't work, he does the unironic version of the, what if we just punched them really, really hard? And it works every single time for him. Between the daggers he buys, finds in a dungeon, or is given to by someone he knows, there's really no indicator if you aren't reading it that any of them are different from the others, again, other than the story just explicitly telling you. There's no change in visual design between man-made, made by magic, made from monsters. I'm not asking for much. The characters' fits are also not amazing. I know I'm not in the majority for that opinion, but Jinwoo is always either in jeans, sweatpants, slacks, a tracksuit, or has some manner of open suit blazer. He does get fantasy equipment that would normally put him at least in the same general aesthetic as everybody else, but he's able to hide it from view because of his access to the system, and he does that because he thinks it would make him look lame. I'm sorry, but everyone else already looks like a disaster MMO character. Not looking like that just makes you stand out and look like a dweeb. A point I touched on earlier with everything kind of blending together is the glowing eyes effect, which is mostly Jinwoo's signature move. It always happens when he's going to do something actiony or cool. A good half the panels that are supposed to be his serious or determined face, he's just doing the Sans Undertale eye. Setting all that aside, again, as I said, the art is nice, but it's kind of unremarkably nice. When it was first being made, yeah, it was a lot prettier than other webtoons, but the other artists have really caught up, at least on the detail point, so what used to be its defining feature is now an expectation rather than an exception. Obviously unique to the anime, the music is, at least to me, pretty forgettable. It doesn't really do anything to set itself apart from other battle shonen that tends to just blend into the background. If that's your jam, more power to you. Music's by far the most subjective part of this whole thing. It just really bounces off my brain. I've heard similar tracks to these hundreds of times among other shows. I know specifically everyone kind of lost their collective shit during episode 6 with Dark Aria Level 2, but to me the scene didn't really line up with the emotion the song was going for. I'll get into that later, but that's for the spoilers section. I will say the exception to all of this is the opening. I don't know what I was expecting, but edgy high school butt rock was not it. 10 out of 10 makes me laugh every time. This is the point where, in order to continue to discuss things like the themes of the story beyond very generic descriptions, I'm gonna have to start getting into specifics. Again, I will only be sticking to the anime as far as major plot points that are covered. So, even though I know what the plot beats are at later points, I will refrain from discussing them here. The only spoilers I'm going to include are individual lines that cut out from the anime for one reason or another, but none of them are really vital to the plot. And if you're worried about whether you do want to read or watch Solo Leveling and worry about missing important lore beats, don't worry. There are plenty of instances of characters explaining the plot to each other for no possible good reason in universe, but regardless, if you're not wanting anything spoiled in the anime, skip to here. The state of men without civil society is nothing else but a mere war of all against all. And in that war, all men have equal right unto all things. For those not familiar with this quote, it's by the famous philosopher Thomas Hobbes. He believed that the natural state of man was one of violence and greed, that if not for the laws of an absolute power, generally in the form of an absolute being like a king, man would be no better than an animal. Jinwoo very closely ascribes to this philosophy as he feels as his weakness is why people treat him poorly, why people abandon him, and that if he becomes powerful enough, that he'll be the one to make others bow to him. This is evident in his battle with the boss serpent when he's picturing the double dungeon statue that forced everyone to bow in fear to it. It's something he aspires for. Power so overwhelming that no one dare betray him. He does not want to just have power, he wants to be power. Just one small problem. Much like Jinwoo, Hobbs was a fucking dumbass. In Hobbs' case, all 688 pages of his book Leviathan are a dedicated, long, sloppy blowjob to his preferred power structure, absolute monarchy. People didn't form society because they were forced into submission by a Giga Chad king. People don't devolve into raving murderers or worse the moment there are no laws. A large part of humanity kills exactly how often they want to. Never. Hell, at most, a normal person might have 3 people in the world they would like to kill. Their boss, their abusive parent, and the guy telling you to your face that despite no one filing a claim last year that your insurance premium is doubling. Humans are not just social creatures, but generally are going to be pretty empathetic to no small number of other people. We formed civilization because of the social contract that requires all of us to just look out and care for one another. That's really only ever broken when rich sociopaths get too much power and begin trying to kill people by starting wars or just removing the social benefits of being part of that social contract. You don't open a door for someone because you're expecting them to pay you. You don't help someone who slipped and fell because you expect to be owed a favor. You do those things because it's a small act that all of us can do to make life a little better for someone else. Jinwoo, like a lot of anime protagonists who start off as weak, sees that weakness as not only a character flaw, but as a slight against them by the world itself. They are treated badly because they are weak. They are left behind because they are weak. It's never their own fault, it's the world's fault for being so mean to the poor little guy. Even when Jinwoo starts to become significantly more powerful, he doesn't tell anyone because he's working under the implied impression that he'd be in danger somehow from others coming after him, because his worldview is the same as a sociopath's, and that's that everyone thinks like he does. With how the story is presented already, it's obvious he's going to be proven right and people hate him because he's just that much of a Giga Chad now. But that's just not how people are. Like, it's reasonable when he encounters people who are trying to get him killed just because they're evil. You're going to run into them eventually, but, like, even though other characters aren't outright murderers, the story treats most of them as if they're one step away from being one. Jinwoo fully believes that the only reason he was abandoned was because he was weak, despite the story showing people having a nervous breakdown from their allies being turned into fucking ground beef mere moments before. But no, it's somehow that they're betraying him. It's not enough that these people are losing their mind because they're so scared of death. It has to be because it's also a slight against Jinwoo. It has to justify his rage and anger towards society that people were mean to him. Therefore, him becoming one of the most powerful people alive is just him getting what he deserves. One of the early signs of this is all of the women working at the hospital all suddenly wanting to bang him the moment he has abs and his face and body have literally changed shape. Which, even though I know it's because of him leveling up, in reality, your body can change like that. People can grow larger, bigger muscles, face changes shape, the whole package. It's called steroids. But no, much like how all the guys for whatever reason are shown to look down on Jinwoo, and despite the fact that he's already got a woman who's so super into him that it borders on bad writing, now women only pay attention to him and are throwing themselves at him because he's a Chad. But outside of one specific case, all of these women are just completely discarded by the story, which itself is such toxic manosphere bullshit that I'm really not qualified enough to go into it. If you want to watch a good discussion on the inner workings of the manosphere and why it's awful, just go watch any of those 2 or 3 hour-long video essays on the topic by people much smarter than me. It's not just that, though. Much like Attack on Titan and Eren, Jinwoo has real powerful school shooter energy. The way he views life as being unfair and that his reaction is one of justified hyperviolence. It really feels like he shouldn't be allowed near a gun if he was in the real world. Everything in the story tries so hard to make Jinwoo look like a certified badass. The issue is, the story's idea of a badass is the same as those people who unironically do the teleports behind you, nothing personnel, kid, before cutting them in two with their katana. Half the poses Jinwoo makes feels like it's a lead-in to a cutaway gag of someone's chuny little brother trying to act cool, showing what he looks like in his own head, before cutting back to normal and he's just doing a lame pose. Another way they try and make us go, oh man, don't mess with Jinwoo, he's such a stone-cold killer, is not only giving him Sans Undertale eyes every time he's doing something seen as cool, but also using his levels, stats, items, and skills on the screen. It's so lame. Oh my god, he's already level 18? What's that mean in context? No, don't look away. Don't wave your hand. What does level 18 mean? What does 48 strength points mean? What does doing 40% more damage mean? Why should I feel excited when he screams, I put all of my ability points into strength? These are all bullshit RPG terms that mean nothing because the creator is just making it all up. I could tell you my OC is level 73 with 800 dexterity and S+ rank in daggers, but that wouldn't mean anything to you because I just made it up on the spot. The story tries so hard to make the same argument that's in shows like Rising of Shield Hero. You fail because you're treating this world as if it's a game, says the man who just went to a giant magic hourglass in order to reset his literal slaves' levels in order to raise the level cap. Every single time I watch one of these shows, it convinces me that more and more of them have never played an actual proper dungeon crawl game. At best, they've played any number of those horrifying Skinner box Korean MMOs where you gain levels at a stupefyingly fast rate, but the level cap is something like 10 or 100,000, so it still takes forever to get there, and each level by itself is fundamentally meaningless. Solo Leveling loves to show us how he's so cool that he killed 3 enemies at once and leveled up 3 times. The creators must be absolutely terrified of the idea that they couldn't convey someone's power if they didn't outright say, they're this strong because they're level 49 and they put all their free ability points into the strength score. I actually audibly laughed when Jinwoo did the literal smirk, heh. It really drives home what hit me when I was originally reading the webtoon. Jinwoo is the professional version of your high school OC. The edginess, the raging against perceived slights just to be proven right every time, the fact that they want people to bow to them or cower because their power is unmatched. It really feels like one of those cringe TikToks where people do anime poses and talk about being a dragon god or something. At the end of the anime, when he gets his job title, I can't believe that somebody actually wrote the phrase Shadow Monarch and didn't see it as a very bullyable name. Now, I'll admit, growing up, I made Equilibrium, Fight Club, and Boondock Saints a very core part of my personality. But if I met someone who gave their OC the same title Jinwoo gets, Child Me would absolutely have bullied them for being a loser. And I went to school with somebody who unironically tried to convince everyone he could fistfight a tank and win, so I feel I'm qualified to speak on the subject. If there was any actual joy in the series, any sense of being able to joke at Jinwoo's expense, it'd be not great, but I'd be more okay with it. But no. The series must take him seriously at every turn, because the worst thing that could ever happen is someone not thinking your OC is the coolest person ever. I understand there are jokes in the webtoon about him being a forgetful dork or whatever, but I'm saying we never get to see him be the butt of the joke when he's doing action stuff. We're talking about people who seem to think that the Sans Undertale eye thing is so cool that giving their OC 2 Sans Undertale eyes means he's double the cool. This is really why people give Naruto more leeway. It's not always needing to be taken seriously. That and Naruto isn't made for early 20-something dudes who are sure this story is based on them. Quick pause. While writing this, I haven't gotten to the end of the anime or the webtoon, writing as I'm going, but Solo Leveling made me laugh so hard, I had to stop everything I was doing because of how stupid it was. It's the moment where he's fighting the spider and goes, I need to be faster. I need more speed. And then a text box pops up saying, you have acquired the skill speed. It's changed to dash in the anime because they're cowards. This is not the only time the anime cuts out cringe stuff, but it's the sort of thing that if I were telling a non-anime fan about it, they would honestly think I was just being mean to the series. I mean, come on. No one would actually seriously just give their main character the speed power-up so they can go faster. Another thing that's bugged me about solo leveling is even before he becomes a player, Jinwoo is shown to us as if he has the, at least beginnings of a great tactical mind. Relying on his wits, he has to look out for others and save himself when no one else can. How does the story convey to us that he is a tactical genius? By having a massive tablet with the riddle, "You shall worship God," and then it requiring people to get turned into deli meat before Jinwoo goes, "Guys, we gotta bow down!" Everyone is stunned that he's able to puzzle out this impossible riddle. Compare that to Indiana Jones, where he had an almost identical riddle, but he had maybe 3 seconds to figure it out before he would have been cut in half. Speaking of Jinwoo's dazzling ability to figure out a very basic logic puzzle, people don't actually treat him like shit for the first several chapters. Like, yeah, people going, "Isn't he one of the weaker ones?" Or, "This should be an easy one because he's allowed to come along." It's kind of rude, yeah, especially when he's in earshot. But no one's going like, "Ha ha ha, look at the little baby wearing his little diaper because he's gonna pee himself. Ha 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 ha." No, they're just like, stand back so you don't hurt yourself. They say this while looking out for him and like conveying kindness. You know, famously something people do when they're trying to insult you. And at worst, it's been people turning him down when he wants to go with them. But it's not like they're going fishing and keeping him out of the boys' club. No, they're going into a potentially life or death situation. So it's pretty reasonable that you'd not want to bring someone along who could get you or someone else killed. But again, everything must be a slight against Jinwoo just to prove him right. To prove that he needs to become powerful enough that the entire world will bend to his will. I can really only say or imply school shooter energy so many times. And before you call me tasteless, I can make that joke because I'm an American. His big fight against the spider creature in the webtoon especially is another great example of billionaire slams dick in car door repeatedly before stopping and thinking maybe he shouldn't. And then all of the slobbering idiots who idolize him go, "Masterful gambit, sir," before clapping. Jinwoo says that it's been about 5 minutes since he started fighting it, possibly 10, removed in the anime. But let's just go with 5 to be generous. After 5 minutes of his attacks not working, he then suddenly goes, "I should target its weak points. It's a normal hunter tactic." Just figured that out all on your own, did ya? Is this the part where I'm supposed to cheer? Right after this is, I think, one of the best examples of how Jinwoo is both a sociopath, but also the author ascribes to Hobbes' philosophy, is in episode 6, when he's given a quest to kill the people who are trying to kill him. They cut out most of the lines in the anime because, lordy, they were cringe. But as soon as Jinwoo assumes that Jinho will betray him, Jinwoo just says, "Of course you betray me. I'm weak." Like, he says that out loud with his words. Pair that with the incredibly edgy no page where his violence switch is turned on. Jinwoo becomes what Hobbes thinks is the natural state of man. He becomes that loser who wears the t-shirt that says, "Don't piss me off, I'm about to level up and you look like just enough experience points." He starts killing these guys with glowing blue eyes, badass poses, and counting as he kills them. A human that is even slightly well-adjusted wouldn't do that. Not only that, but he starts to get his signature dark purple lightning effects that shows he's so serious. Like, look at this, it's literally the Sans Undertale thing. There's no other way to see it. He's trying so hard to be cool, and it honestly gives me some secondhand embarrassment. Again, I'm writing this as I go, and every time I think, time to move on from this point, the comic just keeps getting worse. In the next chapter, but still in episode 6, he's doing the "only the strong survive" before getting a big black silhouette basically doing the
Do you know what nemesis means? A righteous infliction of retribution manifested by an appropriate agent.
but it's really giving energy of, don't buy the princess mac and cheese dinner, Mom. That one's for girls and I'm a man. It's so weird to me because in a normal story, the people who value strength and power above all else and see it as the only justice are pretty much universally seen as the bad guys. Not the people who are supposed to go, oh man, he's so cool. I wish he'd fuck my wife so she could be with a real man. I'm not kidding. I saw a post about someone wishing he'd fuck their girlfriend. Sadly, the comment was deleted, and I want to believe it was a joke, but we live in a reality beyond parody. And it's not even that he's killing in self-defense. These people did attack him. It's just that he's so indulgently cutting these people into tiny bits, the entire time giving off the vibe of, Mom said it's my turn to play on the Xbox. He's delivering one-liners that middle schoolers think to themselves when they're like, if only I had a Sharingan, then I could tell that damn teacher she's just in the way. Jinwoo is taking his time killing these people. This is the sort of behavior that is someone's... Wait a sec. Wait a fucking second. Do people see Jinwoo as a hero in the same way they see the Joker as a hero? Someone who gleefully slaughters people because he sees the world as being against him? I mostly made that manosphere point earlier as a joke, but like, this is some of the most toxic masculinity I've seen in recent years, on par with those god-awful Rambo sequels. This is the sort of thing that I think should put someone on a list, paralyzing someone and causing them to bleed out their eyes before slowly killing them is some seriously messed up shit for our hero to be doing. He's flaunting his power by literally telling his murder victims that, I've been tirelessly leveling up. As if it's some stone cold line, when, in reality, needing to level grind is a sign of low skill. It's that person playing Dark Souls that cheats to get to soul level 999 at the start of the game to show how strong and cool they are, but getting absolutely wrecked in PvP by an almost naked guy wielding a club and throwing fireballs. But what does Jinwoo do when the battle is over and his adrenaline rush is wearing off? The anime cut this out because he says, my clothes got ruined. Maybe I should buy some new ones. My dude, you are covered in the blood of 8 people who you just took the time to cut to pieces. This is not a normal or justified reaction. The anime tries to make it seem like there's more going on in his head than in the webtoon. Same thing with everybody else. His sister, for example, doesn't mention their sick mom when asked what she'd do with all the money Jinwoo was about to get. And frankly, the webtoon forgets about his mom for roughly 80 chapters. Any mention of the elixir of life after killing Cerberus in the anime was an addition. In the original, he goes there and starts going through the floors because of his single-minded obsession with level grinding. This guy is just straight up a different person than he was in Chapter 1. You don't go from a seemingly well-meaning but depressed loser to someone whose main concern about killing 8 people is needing new clothes and not being ratted out. I think that one of the greatest sins that soul leveling commits is how it started off with, Jinwoo is the weakest hunter ever and he's relentlessly bullied for this. I know we didn't show you, but it happened off screen, trust me. This is a story about him becoming the strongest. But unlike a lot of really bad shonen anime, the fights only have 2 modes. Either all the good guys die or every enemy gets one shot. There's never a fight where he's seriously outclassed once he starts grinding. I know people claim that it happens later, but trust me, it doesn't. I really don't get the fascination that authors have with going from hopeless for the main character to hopeless for the enemy. There's no tension, there's no stakes. His fight with Cerberus was such a joke. He talks about how all of his buffs are up, but they don't do anything. Then we get told Cerberus is raging, which doubles its stats. But then in the webtoon, he uses one of his daily full heals, gets a Super Saiyan style power up, and just grabs onto it and one-shots it. It's so nonsensical that if I didn't know any better, I'd assume this entire series was a parody. This stuff is so consistently bad in the webtoon that the anime has to really go out of its way to even pretend that Jinwoo has to put in effort. Something that is in contest for the most tension-killing aspect of the entire series is his daily full heal. It's just another easy way for the author to not actually have to think about pacing or building tension in a fight. He can just have Jinwoo get hit really hard, possibly nearly die, full heal, then hit the enemy back and kill them instead. At least with the sensu beans in Dragon Ball Z, they aren't always an option. It's stuff like this that makes me think that the author is an idiot or fully believes we are. A great example of this is Song seeing Jinwoo for the first time after the double dungeon and going, "Hey, wait a minute, didn't your leg get cut off?" And Jinwoo passes it off by going, "I'm not really sure what happened either," which would be fine, except then the text box for the regeneration skill pops up as if the reader is expected to have the memory of a goldfish. I don't know about you, but when I'm reading, watching, or playing something, I want to be treated like the semi-functioning Cheeto-crusted man-child that I am, who doesn't need a Dora Explorer level of constant reminders for its target audience of 5 years old. It's not just hack writing, it's flat out insulting. Not just that, but Song explaining that he's bowing to Jinwoo because he's thankful and showing respect. Motherfucker, what else is a bow supposed to be for? Wait, hold up. Why did you have to phrase it that way? I know you're trying to be different from normal fantasy isekai that say, of course goblins are evil. They're all low-level enemies. But going with having somebody say that they're the same intelligence of a child, I don't know about you, but personally, I'd take issue with murdering something that's compared intellectually to a child. Granted, this is the same author that had our hero torture people before cutting them to pieces without so much as blinking. So I guess I really shouldn't be too surprised by this point. And then, right after this, yet another person is talking about how they want to bow to Jinwoo but can't. Look, I like myself a good revenge story, and even wish fulfillment stories. If you look at one that's the combination of both worlds, John Wick, you'll see he doesn't gleefully torture and kill people. Plus, these are people who, actually both tried to kill him but also killed his dog. There was never a point where I was worried that he was going to use his power and skill to make people bow down to him and grovel while he lords it over them. No, when he has beef with somebody, he just kills them. He doesn't live out a weird, uncomfortable fantasy of a high school loner who thinks no girl likes him because he's scrawny and small, when in reality it's because he doesn't shower and stares at them for minutes on end. And this might just be a me thing. On my first read through, during the cliffhanger here, before it was revealed to be Kang, I unironically thought the serial killer lines were being delivered by Jinwoo. The fact that the person I'm supposed to root for is not discernible to the serial killer bad guy, not a great sign. Also, again, the guy bleeding out talks about how he wishes to bow to Jinwoo. Like, Jesus tap dancing Christ, the author loves his OC more than most parents love their children. And really? How many times can someone do the teleports behind move before we start making fun of it? It's still wild to me how, when first watching this show, my friends and I called it out for being very Hobbesian in nature, because not once, but twice now, our main character is given a kill or be killed quest, and each time he's just like, oh boy, time to start killing again. As soon as the absolute power the system says you are to kill that person, he's just willing to go, cool, I wanted to kill them anyway, so that just gives me an excuse. His every emotional response to a situation is either unable to read the room or justified hyperviolence. I'm learning that an opponent who talks too much looks pathetic. Yeah, you're one to talk, mister. That's one, Jinwoo. Again, I'm not normally one for bullying, but I'm pretty sure the world of solo leveling would be better if Jinwoo had been bullied harder growing up. Another one of my emotions has died. Now, this is an interesting line. It's clearly hinting at something darker surrounding Jinwoo's powers, and that it will be examined more later in the story. But, and this is no spoiler, this is conjecture, I don't believe that there was any plan at all for it when it was written. There's just so much that is never touched upon until about halfway through the series that, realistically, this felt like the author was trying to put a dark twist on his story rather than have it tie into anything. And this is a very minor spoiler, but his emotions dying literally never comes back to bite him or causes any relationship problems with those close to him. You'd think that if someone was losing their emotions, being unable to express themselves through anything other than violence, the people who love you would start to be uncomfortable and reach out to you, then you don't react well, and then they pull away because they're scared of you. No, everyone's just like, aw, Jinwoo, ain't he quirky? Okay, no, I swear now I'm being fucked with. They actually used a Nietzsche quote. For real? He's all about defining your own morality by creating your own path. Yet Jinwoo just takes the easiest route at every opportunity by just doing what the system tells him to. Literally, he's following an instruction list because it rewards him. He never truly makes a choice to go against it and create his own path. And when he does actually make a choice, it's only when it's explicitly told he's able to make it without any consequences. If you're trying to do a slow burn of a character's descent into madness, it's not supposed to be seen as something good. There are a scant few times where people say, "Ooh, be careful with your power," but then he never has to struggle with it, ever. Imagine if in Naruto he was told the Nine Tails was super dangerous, but the Nine Tails when they first met went, "You're a cool dude, here's all my power for free." What confuses me is how often they have a chance for basically everyone to tell Jinwoo that he needs to chill out or that he's scaring them, but every single time he gets rewarded for his bad behavior. Murdering the guys in the dungeon and not caring, murdering Kane, many of his later unjustified murders. But the first one that really stuck out to me as a "what are you doing" moment was when our hero threatens to murder a guy in cold blood for the crime of using basic deduction to figure out Jinwoo's super special now? The guy did an illegal background check, sure, which doesn't really make sense in the first place because all of the info he got on Jinwoo appears to be mostly publicly available anyway. Jinwoo immediately went to murder. What emotion am I supposed to be feeling? Finally, Jinwoo turned the tables on someone weaker than him, and now can make everyone cower at his feet. Shows them right for not treating him with the most respect of anyone in the world when he was a loser. I tried explaining this comic to a friend and they thought I was being mean and making stuff up. Before I showed them, they were telling me that no one would actually write any of this stuff with the intention of it being taken seriously. And I know I mentioned it a little earlier, but if we're supposed to think that Jinwoo is the coolest dude in the room, why is he always in hoodie and track pants? I know his fit is changed up and he later gets a suit, but half the fun of fantasy stuff is having creative and cool outfits for your characters. But here's our Giga Chad looking like he never leaves his room except for Hot Pockets. I'm positive that the author thinks of proper fantasy stuff as kiddie things, hence his story being for real men. I'm not as familiar with the Korean influences in pop culture, but if this was a Japanese author, I'd assume they were trying to do the Dragon Quest is for babies, this series is for adults. Which I guess it lines up. What else screams it's a manly story for only the most alpha Giga Chads who get all of the women they want by explaining they have to use their strength to hit really hard? It's just a shame that this means we get edgy poses and emotionless killing. Couldn't even give us something glorious as from commonplace to world's strongest with the Camuses. Circling back to his massive shift in personality, his line of, "My kindness never saved me." Every line that supports that idea gives me a better and better picture into the author's mind. Are you being chivalrous? You think I'm weak? Imagine being so far up your own ass that you see an acknowledgement of you as a respectable warrior, and your response is getting angry. Blech. Not like it matters that much, but every single fight after this one goes the same way. Jinwoo toys with his opponent until he decides, "I'm done playing around," and then just completely bodies them. It's so boring. Why does anyone think it's cool to just watch someone kill stuff without any effort? And you can't tell me he put in effort. The story just decided it was time for him to win, and he did. The Igris fight is honestly the last one where I guess he has to put in any effort. Even then, him saying, "I need a weapon that can break through armor," and then sees literally a weapon entitled Night Killer and goes, "Found it." It feels like parody, right? And I gotta say, for a series all about the supposed effort of this man to become the most powerful in the universe, constantly giving him a get-out-of-jail-free card and that still count towards his bonus is just insane. This is a problem with a lot of fiction that use not just game terms, but establish their own internal rules like the Fate Stay Night series. We're told what the expected rules are, what is supposed to happen, but then everything constantly goes wrong. That really only works if we see things go correctly. So, much like Fate, Solo Leveling keeps showing us seeming exceptions to the rule and framing it as something special and unexpected. I know I probably shouldn't quote the series directly as much as I am, but I really can't resist sometimes. It's over. I can finally get a job. This is objectively one of the funniest lines in not just this comic, but anything I've ever read. But despite it being hilarious, him getting assigned a job with dialogue boxes that feel like you'd find them in the poetry section of an early 2000s DeviantArt on someone's profile next to their Invader Zim OC, it really... Come on. Is this real life? Did an adult with an actual job really think that saying, "You have been promoted from necromancer to the monarch of shadows," was going to be a huge dramatic moment? I guess so, considering the fanfare with Arise. It's just weird to me how he doesn't embrace the cringe. If he did, then at least I'd understand what the author's going for. But no, instead, in the same breath, Jinwoo says, "Igris the Red." That's so cringe. I just can't call you that. I just gotta call you Igris. I know a lot of Webtoon fans were super pumped for the Arise bit to be animated, but why? This is just the start of him being able to have an army of minions with no tension. They can completely regenerate and are stronger than most every other named character we ever see. Originally, I was planning on going through the entire series, not just the anime, but as I was writing, I noticed I was having to, after this, go more into summarizing what happened before talking about it, because the number of people who will have read the webtoon is going to be way smaller than have seen the anime. As a result, I felt that change in tone didn't really fit in with the rest of the video. If you don't feel like reading the webtoon and want to hear about the rest of it and my thoughts on it, let me know in the comments if you'd like me to continue and do another part on the webtoon, because who knows honestly when the next season's coming out. Otherwise, I'll just sum up my thoughts on Solo Leveling as it pertains to the anime. At best, it's an incredibly mediocre show with decent animation and an abhorrent protagonist. These first few arcs are far and above the hardest Jinwoo ever has to try to accomplish anything, and the rest of the series spends an insane amount of time building up dozens of other characters, only for them to do literally nothing. I get the draw of dumb action. I've watched and enjoyed all of Dragon Ball Super. Most of Dragon Ball Super. But in that, they still have to try. Not just that, but even though Goku ends up winning in the end, and you know that's going to happen, side characters still get to participate. In Solo Leveling, you could remove everyone but Jinwoo and the plot would not change. Compare that to something like the Saiyan Saga in Dragon Ball Z, where the rest of the cast has to delay for Goku and still help him win in the end. But Solo Leveling doesn't even manage that much. Everyone is just there to gawk at how cool Jinwoo is. In addition, I have been told in an online discussion before that the webtoon has 14.3 billion views, meaning, quote, "Could that many people be wrong, smiley face?" I respond with, by that logic, no greater films have ever existed than the Marvel Cinematic Universe, since no other franchise has eclipsed the almost 30 billion and counting it has. Obviously, because the most people have seen it, that means it's the best, right? At the end of the day, Jinwoo is the epitome of an isekai protagonist. They want to know that if they put in any effort, they will not only be rewarded, but they will either rule the world by the end or have a subservient harem, or in a lot of cases both. They can get anything they want, and everyone else is just an NPC to be used by them. This is the point where I'd make some sort of closing joke, but really, wanting the sort of life where you have no true friends, feel the need to threaten everyone, and react to everything with hyperviolence is really just a sad existence. One where you even see kindness as a weakness and only strength has merit. Thinking that even the slightest amount of power utterly corrupts anyone it comes in contact with, so you might as become the most powerful being alive, I can think of few existences more lonely than that. Life is worth living because we have people who love us, who like to spend time with us, and who want for nothing more than our companionship. Humans aren't meant to be alone, because when we are, it takes us to one of the darkest places anyone can ever be, an incel.